It's the HAM coming at you live and direct. All right. So, real funny story before I forget. Only because I do a lot of goofy things throughout the day. And sometimes things are worth sharing. I'm admittedly not a perfect person. I have things to work on, like we all do. Anyway, so at school today, covering for someone and, going through class, and one of my colleagues tells me, hey, I need you to come outside. And I go out there, and she goes, hey, she goes, there's a squirrel over here. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, it's dead. I'll go get something. She goes, no, it's alive. She's like, kind of explaining the condition of the squirrel. And I didn't know how to kind of take it, so I went back into the shop looking for a box or something, and there was no box that I could find. So I got one of those big dustpans, like the bucket one, like the big industrial ones. And anyway, I take that in a broom because, again, I don't know what's going on with the squirrel. I go out there and it's raining. It's been cold. Julian's on the verge of getting another snowstorm, and the squirrel's just laying there, just like laying, and it's just like barely breathing. So I scoop it up in the bucket and I take it inside, inside of the classroom, and go inside the shop. And I'm like, talking to the kids. I'm like, hey, who wants to take care of a squirrel for extra credit? Anyway, uh, nobody took me up on that, but there was one kid was like, hey, he goes, there's stuff for the animals, to keep them warm. And I'm like, what do you mean, like a heat lamp? And he goes, yeah. So we went out into the ag part of the shop, dug out the heat lamp, set up this little configuration where the heat lamp's hanging directly over this squirrel who, still inside of this bucket and is just laying there. It was barely breathing. And I couldn't really tell if it was alive or not. They had to watch it for a while. So it was taking very, very, like, shallow and infrequent breaths. And, I've set up with puppies before in the middle of the night and watched little puppies, die that way. Usually when animals are dying, or, breathing like that, it's usually a bad sign. And just looking at this squirrel, I could see, like, he had these little injuries. Like, there's a little tear to his arm. I couldn't even see if he had the full arm, but on his shoulder, there was, like, a little cut. And then on his back hip, he was kind of, oozing out some, at least some body fat. I'm thinking that either a hawk, an eagle, something got a hold of him, or possibly a coyote had him in his mouth. He was just running through. But anyway, the squirrel sitting in this puddle of water is freezing cold. We move it inside into the shop, and I put it under this heat lamp. And I'm like, okay. I told the student, he goes, I don't think it's gonna make it. I said, all right, here's the deal. I was like, we'll give life a chance. Keep this the squirrel under this heat lamp. Give it a day or two. If it bounces back, cool. If not, that's just kind of how life goes. I'm like, all right. So a couple of kids came in and checked on the squirrel. They gave it a piece of cheese. And they said that it ate some of the cheese. I don't know that it did. But I did notice that when I went back into the shop after checking several times, that the squirrel had like rotated around. So it went from just laying there, barely able to breathe, to like there's some movement, not necessarily in front of me at that point. Anyway, go out, check on her a few more times. Notice that he's actually starting to sit up. He's moving a lot better. That heat lamps, give him that energy. That he's like the reverse Superman, the reverse Super Mouse. Instead of having the red sun give him powers, I put him under, instead of having the yellow sun give him powers, I put him under the red heat lamp. And, he started coming back, he started hulking out and whatnot. I don't know. He wasn't hulking out. He was just kind of sitting there. Anyway, go to lunch, come back, check on him. And one of my students was like, hey, can I go to the bathroom? I'm like, yeah, go check on the squirrel while we're out there. And we go over and look, and she's like, oh, he needs water. So she, gets a little cup, puts it in there. She goes, hey, he kind of moved. She's like, I think I scared him when I gave him the water. I'm like, he moved? Like, you saw him move? And she goes, yeah. So I go grab my camera. I'm going to take pictures of this guy because, he's starting to recover. And I wanted to have some pictures of him, like, kind of coming back to life. And as I'm walking over to the bucket, it's me, my student next to me, and this bucket sitting on this table underneath this red light. And all of a sudden, we see this little face like poke up. It's like this, and it kind of does like this, and it goes back down. And then all of a sudden, this thing pops out and runs, dives to the table, runs across the room, and starts looking for places to escape. And it was like the craziest thing because it reminded me of that scene in Aliens when they're all sitting there and everybody's like, kind of sitting there laughing, and nobody's having dinner, and all of a sudden he starts coughing, and that little monster comes out and bursts out, and he just like takes off and runs. But see, Aliens was the funny or the scary thing. Spaceballs was the funny thing because in Spaceballs it gets out, it walks across the counter, it breaks out a cane and a hat, and it starts dancing. So, this squirrel's doing that, and I'm kind of like tripping out over this. All right, so it's behind some things. We can't get it. I'm like, okay, I'll leave the door open. Eventually, the squirrel's going to want to go outside, right? He's from nature. He wants to go back to nature. Go back to your happy place. No, it didn't quite work like that. No, let another student go get some water or go to the bathroom or something. And he goes back in. He's like, why is there a squirrel in the shop? I'm like, you saw it? He goes, yes. He goes, it's sitting right there. I'm like, good. We need to make sure it gets out. So we go back in there and look through everything. Cannot find this squirrel. I mean, the squirrel. So I'm sitting there thinking, like, I remember when I went in there earlier with the first student, and the squirrel, like, was just sitting there half dead. And I kept joking about how it might be like some sort of horror movie, and I'll come back in there and the squirrel's not there, and they're like, come out and attack me. And now I'm sitting there going, this mug is out. Like, and nobody knows where he's at. And he might not be in a good mood either. And then it made me think of Monty Python with that rabbit. He's vicious. He has a mean streak a mile wide. Yeah, that squirrel, he took me through it today. Ups and downs, highs and lows. Here's the thing. Maybe this squirrel is like nutty, like Robert De Niro in Cape Fear Nutty. Like maybe he's on the bottom of my car, and he wrote the bottom of my car back here. And later I'm gonna be like out there slipping, doing some yard work or something. He's gonna be like,